The federal government has tabled legislation to amend the Citizenship Act. It has big implications for families where the parents are Canadians, but their children were born outside of the country. Under a previous Conservative government, some of those children lost their right to citizenship in a move later declared unconstitutional. They're known as lost Canadians. Mark Miller, the Minister of Immigration and Citizenship, explained what's changing now.
The proposed legislation will extend citizenship by descent beyond the first generation in a way that is inclusive and upholds the value of our citizenship. If passed, the bill extends automatic citizenship to anyone who is born outside the country to a Canadian parent before the legislation comes into force. We also introduced amendments to respond to issues raised at parliamentary committees as well as in the courts. They will restore citizenship to those we call lost Canadians. That could be someone who is never able to become a citizen or lost citizenship because of previous and outdated legislative provisions.
CBC's Olivia Stefanovich is covering this, and she joins us live from our Ottawa bureau. So, Olivia, can you take us back a bit and talk about how all of this started and then, what's being done now to fix it?
Well, Jacqueline, the federal government had no choice but to introduce the changes that it is promising to see through today. And that's because last December, the Ontario Superior Court of Justice declared the citizenship system as it stands unconstitutional. And that's because of a move that the previous Conservative government made 15 years ago. So back in 2009, under Prime Minister Stephen Harper's government, the law was changed so that Canadian citizen parents who were born abroad could not automatically pass on their Canadian citizenship to their children if those children were born abroad. That will change under Bill C-71 if it is passed. And Immigration Minister Mark Miller, he was joined by members of Parliament from other parties besides the Liberals today when he made this announcement, including members of Parliament from the Green Party and the NDP. Let's take a listen now to why one New Democrat says she supports this proposed legislation.
We have to do this. We have to fix this once and for all. We have to honor the families who's been impacted and to say this unjust law needs to be gotten rid of. This is the right thing to do. Not only a moral imperative to do this, but also a legal imperative.
So what does this new bill, Bill C-71, do to address these changes? Well, it does two things. First of all, it promises to restore Canadian citizenship to those people who were born abroad to Canadian citizens, but were not eligible for Canadian citizenship. So those are for people who were already born. The second part of the bill addresses people who will be born or adopted going forward to make sure that they are eligible for Canadian citizenship. The only condition is that the Canadian parents who will be able to have children under this law and pass on their citizenship, they must be in country and stay in Canada for at least 3 years to be able to pass on their Canadian citizenship to their children, a move to make sure that these Canadian parents have legitimate ties to the country.
Now, Olivia, this change, it isn't a done deal quite yet. So what is next?
No. Well, the Superior Court of Justice from Ontario, it imposed a deadline that the federal government has to meet to make sure these changes are done. And that deadline is June 19th, less than a month from now. So the government really doesn't have a lot of time to pass this legislation. And with this minority government, minority parliament situation that we're in, it would be surprising to see this legislation go from, first reading all the way to royal assent in such short time. We know that this bill has support from the NDP and the Green Party. We don't know where the Conservative Party stands on this yet. We did hear today from advocates who are behind the support of this bill who say that it should receive cross-party support, and they're asking for all members of Parliament to support this proposed legislation. Let's take a listen.
We've gotten citizenship for all kinds of people. When they get in touch with me, I never ask them their politics. They're either Canadian or they're not. That's the glue that binds us together. Canadians have not been very good at standing up for one another. So this citizenship is not partisan. Citizenship is who we are. I don't care about your political party. So everybody should be supporting this bill.
So the clock is ticking on the federal government to not only introduce this legislation, which it already has done, this proposed legislation, but to actually pass it by June 19th, that deadline that was set by the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. Immigration Minister Mark Miller was asked several times during today's announcement about what the federal government's plan is to make sure that this legislation passes before that deadline. Now, he said that the government may ask the court for an extension, but he did say that it's an extension that he doesn't want to see lasting too long, because he says that the government wants to see these changes implemented as soon as possible.
Okay, Olivia, thanks so much. That's the CBC's Olivia Stefanovich in Ottawa.